Welcome to our unit on trigonometry. It's in the right triangles unit. We studied special triangles, and now we're studying trigonometry. So the question is, what is trigonometry? Go ahead and take a second to write this in your notes. Trigonometry is the study of triangle measurements. What are the measurements in a triangle? Well, the sides have measurements and the angles have measurements. So there's a relationship between the sides and the angles, and we use trig to figure out what that relationship is. Let's take a second to look at this right triangle. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about sides being opposite. We're going to talk about the word opposite. We're going to talk about adjacent. And we're going to talk about hypotenuse. So when I talk about opposite, okay, I'm going to use the letter O. When I talk about adjacent, I'm going to use the letter A. And when I talk about the hypotenuse, I'm going to use the letter H. It's not that easy on writing on a computer. All right, so here we go. If I am standing at angle A, here is angle A. This is me standing over here at angle A. So here is my hypotenuse. I'm going to label that H. Close to where I am, here is adjacent, which is next to. And across over here is opposite. So I've labeled my triangle O, A, and H. Opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. Now let's take a look at the same triangle, but let's look at it from angle B. From angle B's perspective, here, this is still the hypotenuse. It's always across from the 90. Close to where I am, this is always adjacent. And what's left way over here is opposite. So we're going to get used to writing O, H, and A. All right, let's take a look at our vocabulary words for this section. The vocabulary words are, this is sine, cosine, and tangent. Abbreviated, this is S-I-N, is still sine. This is C-O-S, is still cosine. And this is T-A-N, is still tangent. So there's a ratio involved, and there's a ratio between the angles and the sides. So sine, the ratio is O over H. For cosine, the ratio is A over H. And for tangent, the ratio is O over A. Okay. If you take a look at this column right here, sine, cosine, and tangent, this we always talk about the angle. So that's where we'll find the angles of perspective. Where am I standing? And right here, when we have our ratios, these are the ratios of the sides of the triangle. So these are the sides. To keep that in mind, we have the angle on one side of the equal sign, and we have the sides on the other. So take a look at the sine of A. Sine of A, that means we're going to stand here at the angle, right here, and we're going to label our triangle. This right here is H for hypotenuse, close to where I am on the inside. This is A. And right here, way over here is opposite. So when I want to find the sine of A, it says the ratio of opposite over hypotenuse. So opposite is little a, and the hypotenuse is little c. So that's sine of A. Let's take a look at the next one. Let's take a look at sine of B. So here is B. I want to label my triangle. H doesn't change. The hypotenuse is right here. What's close to where I am is the A for adjacent. And over here is O for opposite. And then sine, which the ratio is opposite over hypotenuse. What's opposite B? What's opposite big B? Well, little b. And what's the hypotenuse? It's C. So sine of B is B over C. Let's do one more. Let's do cosine of A. So now I want to stand at A. I'm going to go up here to A. And before I do anything, I'm going to label my triangle. Here's H for hypotenuse, close to where I am. This is A for adjacent. And across from where I am is my O. Well, cosine, the ratio is A over H. And we've got to write it over and over again until we know it. So cosine of A, I'm standing at A, and that is B, side B over C. So that's little b over C. Okay? So I'll get you to fill in the rest. You can always push pause. Fill in the rest, cosine of B, tangent of A, and also tangent of B. Okay, so here are the answers. So how did you do? If you had any issues, make sure you see your teacher about those. Okay, so now we're going to move on. We're going to go to our next really quick. Okay, these are some things that you have to remember. You have to remember the sine ratio is opposite over hypotenuse. The cosine ratio is adjacent over hypotenuse, and the tangent is opposite over adjacent. This little saying may help you. We say so ka toa, like an Indian phrase, so ka toa. So that you would know when you say sine, you do O over H. When you say cosine, it's A over H. And when you say tangent, it's O over A. So what I need you to know is that if we're solving for angles, we're going to use, on your calculator, it's the back keys. Take a look at your TI-83 or your TI-84 calculator, and you will see the words up there, SIN, COS, and TAN. Well, if you look behind the keys, you will see sine, and it looks like it's raised to the -1 power. All right, this is how you find the angles. And if you just use the keys on the front, which is just sine, cosine, and tangent, that's how you find the sides. So we're going to use the front keys to find the sides, and we're going to use the back keys to find the angle. Okay? So the back keys will look like this, and the front keys will look like this. So let's go. Let's get started. We're going from letters to numbers. Take a look at this. This is sine of A. I want you to know that on this side, we have the angles, and on this side, we have the ratio of the sides. Okay? So this is sine of A, so this must be an angle. So I'm standing over here at A, and that is opposite. Sine is opposite, so whoop, opposite is 5, and it's over the hypotenuse. Hypotenuse is across from the 90, so my ratio is what? 5 over 13. All right, so now let's pause and see if you can do cosine. Take a second. Okay, so here, all of these are standing at angle A. We're doing opposite over hypotenuse, adjacent over hypotenuse, and opposite over adjacent. So now we're looking at sine of C. That means we're standing somewhere else, and we would have to relabel our triangle. So hypotenuse stays the same. Hypotenuse here is 13. But from where I'm standing now, 5 is adjacent, and what's way over here is my opposite. Try to make it a little bit neater, and it's not working. Okay, so sine of C is opposite over hypotenuse, so that's 12 over 13. Cosine is A over H, so that's going to be 5 over 13. Tangent is O over A, and so that's going to be 12 over 5. Okay, so we went from letters to numbers, and now we're about to problem solve. So this particular one says to find a missing side. Find a missing side. All right, so what we're going to do when we see a problem like this, we are going to go through some steps. What we're going to do is first, we're going to stand. This is the first one. We're going to stand at the angle. We're going to stand, number 1, stand. Number 2, we're going to actually label the sides. So we're going to stand, we're going to label, we're going to set up, and then we're going to solve. This is going to be our process. Stand, label, set up, and solve. So stand, where am I standing? You always find an angle to stand. So here's my angle, this is where I'm standing. Label, from where I am standing, 19 is going to be the H, which is the hypotenuse. What's close to where I am is adjacent, which means right next to, and the side that's furthest away from me is going to be my opposite. So when I look at this, I see X is what I need, and it's by the O, and 19 is what I'm given, and it's H. So when I think of my trig, sine is so, S-O-H. So my setup is going to be sine. So I'm going to do sine. What goes with sine? We talked about it earlier, the angle. Trig and the angle go on one side, and the ratio of the sides go on the other. So this is X over 19. We're going to write all of these as a proportion. So it's going to be sine 28 over 1 is equal to X over 19. Go ahead and get your calculator out. And once you have your calculator out, I want you to hit sine of 28 in your calculator, and you're going to get a decimal. And then what you're going to do with that decimal, you are actually going to replace, here we go, sine of 28 with the decimal. The decimal here is 0.4694. I'm going to rewrite it. This is the same as sine of 28 over 1 is equal to X over 19. So I replace the trig with an actual decimal. And then what I'm going to do next is I'm going to actually cross multiply. So I'm going to cross multiply, and I'm going to multiply X. Oops, can I get it? Yep, X times 1, which is X. And I'm going to multiply 0.4694 times 19 in the calculator. Okay. So when I do that and I multiply by 19, follow with your calculator, I get X is equal to 8.9. X is equal to 8.9. So my missing side is what? 8.9. Alright, sometimes we take those same problems and we put pictures in it and we make it a word problem. We could say a mom is across the room. The baby can see the mom at a 28-degree angle. The baby looks up at the top of the mom's head. It's 19 feet. How tall is the mom? This is the same problem we just worked out. So what do we have to do? We can just set up a triangle. And we can solve. All right, moving right along. Here's the next one. Let's think about a few things. What are we going to do? We're going to stand, we're going to label, we're going to set up, and we're going to solve. That's going to be like our little jingle. We're going to stand, we're going to label, we're going to set up, we're going to solve. So first we're going to stand, and where we're going to stand, we always stand at the angle. This is me standing at the angle. We're going to label, let's label everything. Across from the 90 is the hypotenuse. Close to where I am, that is adjacent. All the way on the opposite side, this is called opposite. So when I look at this, I'm dealing with A, and I'm dealing with the hypotenuse. These are the things that are given or what I'm looking for. So I gotta think, which trig uses A and H? Oh, I got it, it's cosine. So when I set up my problem, I set up cosine 43, which is what? The angle. The angle and the trig goes on one side, all over 1. And the ratio of the sides go on the other side, so 36 over X. Next, we're going to cross multiply. And when we cross multiply, so first we're going to find a decimal for the cosine of 43. And the cosine of 43 happens to be 0.731. So 0.731 over 1 equals 36 over X. We're going to cross multiply, and when we cross multiply, we get 36 is equal to 0.731X. We're going to divide both sides by 0.731. Divide by 0.731. Give you a chance to do it on your calculator. What do we get? 36 divided by 0.731, doing it now, is equal to 49.2. So X is equal to 49.2. Well, it makes sense that the hypotenuse is definitely bigger than the leg, 49.2. So that's kind of a way you can check this out. All right, let's take a look at another example. What are we going to do? We're going to stand, we're going to label, we're going to set up, we're going to solve. So this is me standing. It doesn't change what a hypotenuse is. I'm going to go ahead and put an H right here. Close to where I'm standing, I'm going to call this A for adjacent. And across from where I am is O. So what am I working with? I'm working with O and A. That's tangent. I'm going to come up here and set this up. I'm going to write tangent. What's the angle where I'm standing? It's 41. What's the ratio of the sides? Tangent is opposite over adjacent. All right, so that's x over 32. I'm going to set it up as a proportion. So it's tan 41 over 1 equals x over 32, opposite over adjacent. And so I'm going to go ahead and change tangent of 41 to a decimal, and I get 0.869. So 0.869 over 1 is equal to x over 32. So when I cross multiply, I multiply x times 1, which is x, and I multiply 0.869 times 32. And what I get is 27.8. So x is equal to what? 27.8. And this is how we do these type of problems. Oh my goodness, a word problem. So with the word problems, you're going to have to set up a picture. Keep in mind it's going to be a right triangle. Max built a skateboard ramp that is 16 inches high. So I'm going to go here, 16 inches high. The angle formed by the ramp and the ground. So wait a minute, here we go. Out and up. So the angle formed by the ramp and the ground is 21 degrees. Here it is, 21 degrees. What is the length of the ramp? So where does the variable go? The length of the ramp. Oh, the length of the ramp is from here to here, so we're going to put an X. This is Trig. So if we label from where we're standing, this is me. I'm standing here. Opposite is 16. And x is hypotenuse. We're going to use sine. So sine of, remember the trig and the angle go together. Sine of 21 is equal to the ratio of the sides. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse, so that's 16 over x. And let's put that over 1. Alright, so sine of 21, we go to our handy dandy calculator. And sine of 21 is a decimal, and that decimal is 0.358. Oops, sorry for the sloppiness. Over 1 equals 16 over x. Cross multiply, 1 times 16 is 16, and 0.358 times x is 0.358 times x. We divide both sides by 0.358, both sides by 0.358, and let's see what we get. 16 divided by 0.358. And we get, x is equal to 44.7. So what's the length of the ramp? You got it, 44.7. All right, that concludes our trig. Make sure you study your ratios, sine, cosine, and tangent. So, ka, toa. Until next time, see you then.